Welcome once again to the to yet another episode about Esther Kamakshi Dhanraj and Rajiv Malhotra's program about false allegations against the Christian faith and historicity of Jesus Christ, and Rajiv Malhotra introducing Mrs. Esther Dhanraj, or Kamakshi Dhanraj, as a ex-Christian rather than, I would call her, an ex-Hindu. So let's talk more about that. And also this evening, I have Sai Krishna Gomatam on the show this evening. And interestingly, he's also an ex-Hindu and he comes from a Brahmin background. And we will see who bribed him and who brought him into, or who sold him Christianity. And we will go from there, refuting the claims and allegations that the international goons of RSS and Hindutva ideology are propagating against the Christian faith. Welcome, Brother Sai, on the show.
Thank you, Brother Praveen. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Welcome, brother, and thank you so much for joining with us, and greetings from the northern part of India. And where are you right now?
I'm in Chicago right now.
Chicago.
It's also cold here, but I think exponentially greater than how we can experience in India, I guess.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, the northern part of India is breezy and it's very cold when it
Yeah.
comes to the evenings. Like the moment you're like you hit the 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and all the way until the early mornings, it is like sometimes it is 6 or 5. So, but Chicago is also windy and breezy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
very windy. Yeah. We had snow yesterday, and along with that is breeze. Now, yeah.
Well, excellent, brother. So, what brings you to Chicago?
I'm doing my PhD in ancient Near Eastern languages and archaeology in Trinity International University. So that's why I'm here in Chicago.
Excellent. So can you repeat that once again? What do you mean by PhD in ancient Near Eastern languages? What do you mean by, or what kind of university that Trinity University is? Is it an online course or a regular course? How much time you interact with your professors? Do you really do the research or do just some desk work?
That's a very good question. Um, my specialization is in ancient Near Eastern languages, which means we study so from the prehistoric times to the historic times, and also so the biblical time we see in the
Hmm.
historic times. For example, talk about Sumerian culture, talk about Assyriology or Babylonian religion or Persian religion. So, or the Persian cultural period. So we study the archaeological artifacts, we study languages, and then we try to interact with the biblical languages and the biblical culture. So
Hmm.
this is the area of our research. I don't do digging, but I'm an archaeologist in training. But once our team brings actually findings from their diggings, from their archaeological diggings, I take them and then I read them.
Okay.
So you got to know like a lot of ancient Near Eastern languages, like you got Vedic, Aramaic, and then Akkadian. So Northwest Semitic languages, Phoenician, Punic, and a lot of languages along with Hebrew and Greek, classical and Koine Greek, Koine Greek in which New Testament was written. So it's a fascinating area. I'm really enjoying my research, and it's really helping my faith as well. And coming to your question on Trinity, Trinity actually is it houses many great scholars. For example, you have one of the world's best Egyptologists, James K. Hoffmeyer,
Hmm.
who talked about the historicity of Exodus.
Okay.
Um, so he is a professor here. So he's world's renowned Egyptologist. And you have
Mm.
Kevin Lawson Younger Jr. He's
Hmm.
another world renowned Assyriologist.
Okay.
So he wrote this massive volume on political history of Arameans. So he is also a good scholar here. He keeps writing for even the secular scholars have a very high regard of Kevin Lawson Younger Jr. And also my own advisor, whom I study under. So he's a Sumeriologist. His name is Richard Everbeck. So Trinity houses a lot of these wonderful scholars who are involved in archaeology, who are involved actually in the ancient cultures, and yeah, so it's a fascinating place. In fact, Gleason Archer, who is not an apologist, by the way,
Okay.
because I watched the interview. We'll come to it later, but Mr. Esther mentioned him as an apologist. Nothing wrong with apologetics. We need apologists, but Gleason Archer actually is not an apologist. Gleason Archer is a PhD scholar from Harvard University in classics, and until his retirement, he taught at this place. And right now, where I am sitting at this point, down below is Gleason Archer's archive.
Oh, so you're actually interacting with his works
Yes,
on a daily basis.
yes.
Okay,
So,
so just to meet the interest of our viewers,
yeah.
can you please explain your I mean, I know who you are and what kind of uh, background you come from, but for the sake of our viewers, w-
Mhm,
like your name suggests, of course, that you are a Hindu or you are an ex-Hindu.
mhm.
But what made you become Christian? Who sold you the Christian faith? Or why are you doing this work? Are you planning to break India? Are you planning to, who gave you money? Or are you whom did you sell your soul to? I mean, what is this all about?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Um, Well, I grew up in a Brahmin family. My
Mm.
family and we all practiced untouchability. I don't really, I'm never proud. I'm not proud of it now.
Okay,
But we,
1 minute, brother. 1 minute, brother. Before you move ahead, I time and again, the international Hindu mafia creates this myth, or people like Rajiv Malhotra create this myth saying that Britishers brought the untouchability into India, or Mughals brought untouchability to India. So you said you practiced untouchability when you were Hindu, and Esther said she practiced untouchability when she was Hindu in her video.
yeah.
But can you please, while you describe your background, can you please also touch base on that? Why do you practice it?
Yeah, so a lot of Hindu literature, I think it goes way before British though. The
Mhm.
practice of untouchability is there in a lot of Hindu scriptures, Hindu literature. So I myself actually wrote a paper that was published. So it's Varna system according to Hindu scriptures. That's the paper I wrote, and uh, my argument actually in that paper was that it goes way before British could dream of coming to India. Forget about British entry into India. Before British even could dream. So untouchability goes way before that. Um, so I practiced it. My father and mother, to an extent, actually, they still practice it, and
Okay, even
um,
now.
even now, yes, even now. And um, I grew up in a Visishtadvaita family. It comes from Ramanuja. So our
Yeah.
ancestors are from a place called Srirangam in Tamil Nadu. And so grew up in this family, and I was pious. I was also my aunt's desire is to see me as a Hindu priest. So occasionally she would put me in a Hindu temple near our house in our hometown, and me and my cousin, we both on some special occasions we go and do priesthood in a local temple there.
Hmm.
So that was my background. And
Okay.
when in my early teen years, when I was 16 or 17 years old, that's when actually I started having this existential crisis in my life. I
Hmm.
started questioning actually what is the meaning of life? What does it mean? What is permanent in my life? And those sort of questions actually that preoccupied me. Um, they occupied me, they preoccupied me because Hinduism also, it's speculative. A lot of there is good philosophy out there. When I say good philosophy, what I mean by that is some good, great Hindu thinkers really talked about
Okay.
existential questions,
Hmm.
but the answers were not convincing. That's a different thing because they were asking good questions and they were seeking honestly for answers. And I was like that as well. I was like that as well. And at that time, I heard about Blaise Pascal's statement. Blaise Pascal was a French mathematician, philosopher, and he is a very devout Christian. He wrote this book called Penses. I would recommend everybody to read this because those are very philosophically
Okay.
deep thoughts. And so Pascal said, every man, he talks about God-shaped vacuum, only that God can fill. God is the only one who can give meaning to life. That
Mm.
statement really attracted me to Christianity because I did not meet Christ because I was sick. I did not meet Christ because I was poor.
Mm.
Because I'm from a well-to-do family, and we were all actually living together. It's a combined family.
Okay.
Everything was going well for me, but I met Christ at a philosophical level, at an existential level. He
Mm.
gave meaning to my life, and I did have this powerful encounter with this personality, not just philosophical thinking, but also an existential experience with Christ that
Mm.
really forced me to have a closer look at what Christianity is all about. So that's where my journey started. That's where my journey started.
So
But I had, yeah,
are you saying the questions you had, there were no answers in the Hinduism that you followed?
I was not convinced. They tried to come up with Dvaita. Shankara came with his set of answers. Ramanuja came with his set of answers. These were great thinkers. By no means I'm trying to reduce them. These were
Mm.
great thinkers, but I am not convinced because I think the Christian worldview was really appealing to me because it not only talked about the greatness of human race, but it
Mm.
also talks about the wretchedness of human race. And then in the
Mm.
midst of it, it also talks about how God has made a covenant with humanity, how God did not leave us all out by ourselves, but He
Okay.
really can make sense of our life in the midst of this greatness and wretchedness, in the midst of this confusion.
Okay.
Shankara's answers, I felt actually were not wholesome. And
Mm.
Ramanuja's answer, though he talked about bhakti, he took a little bit forward to Shankara's thought,
Mm.
but I still feel that actually Jesus Christ's answer was they were wholesome and you could believe in it because historically his resurrection was a historical fact and he was the only one who went to the other side of death
Mm.
and
Mm.
then can give perspective actually from the other side. So that was these were some of the things that really forced me to take a closer look at Christianity. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So obviously we are talking about, or we are talking based on the background of the video you and I, both of us watched,
Yeah.
and Esther Kamakshi Dhanraj said, she held a book, or she showed a book, or she mentioned about a book, saying that reading that book, she was convinced that Jesus Christ is not an archaeological, historical figure in history, and it doesn't make any sense believing that he actually lived. And based, looking at various accounts that are written in Bible, she decided, not to follow Christianity. It is absolutely fine for her personal thing, but the claims that she makes, I want to go, take it through you, since you're doing research in archaeology,
Mm.
research in the languages. So
Yeah.
can you please help me? Help me and the viewers. What do you what do you get out of this video, especially from Gleason Archer's mentioning of Gleason Archer and his book, and etc. etc.
Yeah. At the outset, I really want to start on a positive note. A couple of positive things from that video, and then we'll talk about some of her claims.
Okay.
Um, yes, I really appreciated her interest in being invested to know more about Christianity. So she did not really want to she did not want to be content with what she knew. She wanted to learn more. I think I really appreciate that effort. And second thing, also, about the untouchability that she talked about. I think it's it. I don't know if she really expected, but the side effect of her mentioning was when her parents came to Christianity, they really looks like actually they stopped being untouchable. So they start practicing actual untouchability.
Hmm.
Isn't this wonderful?
Yeah.
Because all those years actually that she was in Hinduism, her parents were in Hinduism, they were following actually her father and mother. When she went and mingled with Christians and Muslims in the neighborhood, this is her statement.
Yeah.
And she would come back, and then she has to change, and her brothers and her siblings, they have to change and before they enter the house. But this untouchable practice, how did it go away after
Yeah.
they came to Christ? And
Hmm.
exactly that's what happened to me as well, because once I started uh, following Christ, I have a new set of lens through which I saw my fellow human beings, no longer through caste system, but through the image of God. Imago Dei, we call it actually in Christianity, image of God, right? So those are two things actually that I would like to mention at the outset. And going back to the claims now, I watched three interviews so far from her.
Okay. So you watch both Telugu and English.
Yeah. So the first one, I think it came like a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
roughly. And
Yeah.
in that, uh, she claims herself as a historian, or she claims herself as a scholar,
Hmm.
which I didn't dispute. But I was surprised in that very first video when she talked about C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, every Christian knows about C.S. Lewis, right? So every Christian who is little bit who read a little bit about Christianity, so they know C.S. Lewis. She
Right.
says C.S. Lewis was an American theologian. That blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you caught all of that.
C.S. Lewis was not born in America. He
Yeah.
did not die in America. He was
Yeah.
a Briton through and through. He was a
Yeah.
British guy.
Right.
So he was called Oxford Don. He taught at Oxford. And he was not a
Right.
theologian. He himself
Yeah.
actually said many times in his writings, I'm not writing as a theologian, but I'm writing as a literature person and linguist,
Right.
he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so both are claims. I was like, if you are really a scholar, you would know these things.
Right.
But I decided actually to give a benefit of doubt to her in that video.
Hmm.
I thought, okay, maybe actually she misspoke, and I gave her the benefit of doubt, even though actually it doesn't sound like a misspeaking, right?
Okay.
And then in this video, she invokes Gleason Archer, and
Hmm.
then she says, "Well, here he is. Actually, he's an apologist."
Hmm.
No, Gleason Archer was not an apologist. When I use the word apologist, I what I'm saying is he did not do his scholarship to defend Christianity.
Right.
He
Right.
did his scholarship. He was a classicist, and he did his scholarship, and some of his scholarship really was useful to defend Christianity. But that does not mean that actually he becomes an apologist. You are really turning the tables. You are getting it the other way. Um, by the way, apologist task is not to sell the product. That's
Hmm.
it. That's how actually they try to portray in that video.
Hmm.
Apologist actually is somebody who gives a defense of what they're believing in, why they believe
Right.
what they believe. So they are
Right.
here actually to give a defense of it, not
Right.
irrespective of the truth value, but apologists actually are committed actually to the truth value. So I think
Correct.
there was an attempt to give a negative portrayal of what apologetics is all about, and
Hmm.
also she is not able to distinguish between scholarship and also apologetics.
Hmm.
That's another thing
Yeah.
that I noticed,
Okay.
and I would like to mention this also.
Hmm.
Mr. Rajiv Malhotra kept on telling many times that You are courageous. You are courageous. You are courageous. How many times actually that we heard that word during that interview? You are brave,
Right.
bravery, and all
Right.
these things. All right.
Right.
But I'm quite surprised because here is a person who, in her very first semester, according to her own account,
Mm-hmm.
read Gleason Archer's book, where he raised all these questions, where he admitted that these were the questions that were raised, but
Mm-hmm.
she would not she was not willing actually to go to that part. She was stuck in the first place where all these contradictions are there. Oh, that's it. Actually, I'm throwing my towel. And then she would go to internet and then she would find out the answers for it rather than learning from the scholar himself. Here is a man who knows about 18, at least 18 ancient Near Eastern languages, who involved in archaeology. What does he have to say about all these things that she would not really invest herself in finding about? So
Mm.
that was surprising. And also, as a first semester student, you don't have that sophistication to judge these matters.
Right.
These
Right.
are the questions, yes, they exposed you in your very first semester, but you also need to understand that you don't have that sophistication, you don't have those tools that are needed to judge what are different answers actually that are available on the market for these
Right.
questions,
Right.
or
Yeah.
to question about the presuppositions of these questions.
Mm.
We are exposed. I myself did MDiv, Masters in
Okay.
Divinity.
So you
Uh,
you did the same course that she did.
yeah, but I did not do in apologetics. My
Mm-hmm.
interest was more in languages, ancient Near Eastern languages. Once again, I did in biblical Hebrew, I did in Greek,
Mm.
and also other languages at the time.
Mm.
So that's what I was interested in. Um, but MDiv in apologetics is a good course as well. So the place where I studied, so they offered MDiv in apologetics, and I saw guys that were very sharp, and they grappled with these questions. We are exposed. We are all exposed actually these questions.
Mm.
But we didn't start our journey with just Gleason Archer, though. We were made
Okay.
actually to read those people who raised the questions in the first place. For example, we read Bernard Spinoza back in 17th century.
Right. Right.
We read Julius Wellhausen, von Rad, Martin Nath, and all these people who raised these questions. We were forced actually to read them and
Yeah.
also ask about what are the presuppositions behind these questions.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
this is the point I want to highlight, brother, because raising questions against a religion is not bravery.
Right. Yeah.
Bravery is being able to ask what are the presuppositions behind these questions.
Mm.
Are these questions valid or not?
Mm.
What is driving people to raise these questions? That
Mm.
is the first step in bravery.
Mm.
And I would say second step in bravery is that being willing to read how historically different people answered these questions.
Mm.
So whether they're comfortable to you or uncomfortable to you, whether they fit your agenda or they don't fit your agenda, you should be willing to read how different people try to answer these questions.
Mm.
And third thing is bravery means you should be willing to equip yourself to adjudicate these different
Mm.
answers. For
Okay.
example, when I'm stuck with these questions about the historicity of Jesus, when I was stuck actually about the questions about all these questions that were raised by these people in the 18th, 19th century, and 20th century, I
Mm.
decided actually that, well, I need to find answers. For that, I need to equip myself to be
Right.
able to find out, to be able to even adjudicate these answers. So I need
Right.
to learn the languages. I need to know archaeology. I need to know history, historical methodology. I need to know philosophy, all these
Mm.
things. And I ventured myself to study these things because unless actually I have these things, I should not really, I won't be in a position actually to adjudicate these questions raised by German scholars in the 18th and
Okay.
19th century.
Okay.
So that is, I would say, bravery. I talked about bravery being able to not just be raising questions, but able to question your presuppositions behind the questions,
Mm.
being able to read answers, comfortable or not, And fourth thing is actually equipping ourselves to adjudicate these answers. And fifthly, more important, after all you do this, actually you have to put in your spade work and then adjudicate these answers and communicate to the public whether public accepts whether your answers are the result of your research um, matches the public opinion or not.
Okay. Okay.
So I could not be really thinking that, well, majority of the Christians actually believe this way, and I somehow should fit my research to fit their belief. That is not scholarship. And second thing, at the same way, I should not really think that, well, Rajiv Malhotra wants me to believe this way, or he appreciates people who believe this way, or who reject Christianity, and that's how I should somehow make my scholarship fit uh, Rajiv's skepticism.
Mm. Mm.
That is also not the way that you should go. So bravery is very naively portrayed in that video. That's the point I really want to mention. And uh, another thing, like, the way Miss Esther very, I would say, haphazardly quotes people like Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
She quotes Martin Luther, and then she says, well, father of Protestantism, Martin Luther says that you have to gouge out the eye of your reason if you
Right.
want to see Christianity.
Yeah, and she never never says the source. Where did she get that from?
That's coming from Richard Dawkins.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for a learned person, you know it, I know it, but
Yeah,
for the public who don't, who probably don't never read Martin
yeah.
Luther or anybody else, you know,
And, and guess
she may be
what? Richard
communicating.
Dawkins never quotes him.
Yeah, yeah,
In Dawkins, in God Delusion, Dawkins quotes Luther, but he never gives a footnote.
yeah, yeah.
And you take that one, you call yourself as a researcher, a scholar, and then
Mm,
you take something that doesn't have a footnote, and then you say Martin Luther has said it.
mm,
And here is a person, when he was actually in the diet of worms, every Protestant Christian knows this thing, right? Because when he was asked to recant his work by the Catholic Church,
mm,
what did he say? I won't
mm.
recant unless I am convinced by what? Plain
Right,
reason.
right, right.
He uses the word plain reason.
Yeah.
Here is a rational man. He says that Christianity, Christian faith and Christian belief actually is logically
Mm,
acceptable.
mm.
And he puts that as a test to it. But at the same time, what kind of reason, if Luther ever said this statement, what kind of reason was he talking about?
Yeah, we will be doing a full episode on Luther's comment, the way she used it, and what Luther actually believed and taught, etc., etc. Maybe
Yeah,
next episode will be on that. It is all prepared and ready. Just need to shoot. However, coming back
yeah,
to the video and your
yeah,
your impressions on that video.
yeah,
So you mentioned about Archer, you mentioned about the scholarship, you mentioned about you being the student of MDiv. And when you did your MDiv, have you ever had an interaction with the with scholars in your campus, or you also did something like a distance education? What do you see? What is the difference between the distance education and really studying in a campus?
yeah. Well, it looks like she studied in Luther Rice Seminary. I mean, that's a common knowledge now. And
Okay.
Luther Rice offers some on-campus classes and also off-campus. Looks like, and I don't know whether she did online or or on-campus study. She doesn't really talk very much about it in her video. Um, I did on campus.
Okay.
I interacted with people like Craig Blomberg. Craig Blomberg is a great top-notch scholar who teaches also in Cambridge University and places like Cambridge University. So he is a scholar on historical reliability of the Gospels,
Mm,
historical reliability of Jesus,
mm.
and he is a great scholar in that field. In
Yeah.
fact, actually, I want to share this to you. I mentioned
Mm.
about Miss Esther's view on the historicity of Jesus with Dr. Blomberg.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
And I said, Dr. Blomberg, here is a person who claims that she studied in an American university and she's a scholar and a historian and all these things. And she says that Jesus never existed. And then he looked at me and he said, um, even critical scholars won't hold to that position. People like John Dominic Crossan, who was part
Yeah.
of Jesus seminar, was there to attack the sayings of Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Even they do not hold to this position.
Even Bart Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman does not hold to the
Yeah.
position.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if she goes to John Dominic Crossan or Bart Ehrman, they would say, "What are you really smoking these days?"
All right.
Because it's, hands down, you can talk about actually the miracles that Jesus did and all these things, but historicity of Jesus, nobody has a question about it. Nobody has a question about it these days. No credible scholar, I would say. There are, some blog people may question about this and that, but no credible scholar really questions about it. So on campus, coming back to your question, on campus, yes, I did interact with, I studied under them, I was mentored by them. I interacted with Dr. Craig Blomberg, who's, as I said, actually a scholar in historical reliability. Also, Richard Hess. This name actually a lot of Indians also know because Ms. Esther mentioned about genocide, Canaanite genocide, that she defended Canaanite genocide.
Yeah.
But Richard Hess, archaeologically and also using ancient Near Eastern language names and all these things, his work on genocide, Canaanite genocide was remarkable. I studied on campus. All my MDiv, I studied on campus. Maybe I might have taken like one course or yeah, I think one course online, or two courses online. That's it. But out of all the 50 courses that I took all of them on campus and interacted with the professors, and it's a great experience. So you don't have the reason why I did not like online is because you don't have that interaction possible because there is only so much you can interact via email. But in a classroom setting, it is different because you see how these scholars conduct themselves, how these scholars conduct their scholarship. Can I mention one incident actually that I had with Dr. Craig Blomberg? I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was doing this research on messianic expectations in the Second Temple Judaism period once.
Okay.
So that means I was studying a lot of literature between Old Testament and New Testament also.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point that where I was stuck,
Mm.
and I thought New Testament author was misquoting Old Testament.
Okay.
So I went to Dr. Blomberg and I asked him, Dr. Blomberg, here is a place where I'm stuck.
Mm.
So in Acts chapter 2, looks like Peter misquoted
Mm.
the psalmist.
Okay.
So he looked at me and he said, well, you are not here to you first of all you need to understand. He told me that you need to understand, you need to go with the data.
Mm-hmm.
And data is the one, it should be the driving force, and wherever the evidence takes you, that's where you should go. He did not tell me that no matter what you should really believe in this and you should really defend
Right. Right.
what many Christians believe. That's what he said.
Mm.
I was stuck for many days. He forced me to do more research. He forced me to do more research, and more research. And finally, actually, after reading a lot of literature, I came to a point where I understood the New Testament author. His sophistication in quoting Old Testament, it's much more than actually what we can imagine.
Mm.
It's beautiful. I fell in love with the New Testament
Mm.
as a result of my research because these guys were not really randomly quoting Old Testament passages out of context, like
Mm.
Miss
Mm.
Esther quoted Martin Luther.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
they were actually
Mm.
deeply involved in the Old Testament. They were contextual in their quoting, and I really appreciate it. So this incident I'm telling because the scholars under whom I studied, many American scholars are like this. They don't fail you because you don't agree with them. That's not how American system works. Because if that is the case, you can report it to the Higher Learning Commission in America,
Okay. Okay.
and they will uh, put the accreditation of the institution in probation if they do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that is the facility in America. So Miss Esther, I don't know if she knew it because she said actually she was an educationalist and she should have known this because that's not how scholarship works here in America. If any professor actually marks you down because you believe you argued for a position different than what he believes to be true,
Hmm.
excuse me, then you can report it to the higher commission. It really affects the accreditation of that institution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Coming to Kamakshi Garu, she is an educationist, she is a historian,
Mhm.
she's a philosopher, she's a theologian, everything she is. But but let's go a little bit further on that and see,
Yeah.
because Rajiv Malhotra always says that who sold you Christianity, who sold you Christianity, and stuff like that. And I
Yes.
also heard that with the Trinity, the Trinity University, and the other universities in America are heavily influenced uh, by some of these goons who trying to put down on the authentic work and try to bring in people of their likeness, of
Yeah.
their ideology. Is it true?
Absolutely, yes. This is what both Richard Fox Young and Wendy Doniger, they
Mm,
both spoke about the kind of goonery
mm,
that are being that the scholarship is being subjected to these days,
mm, mm.
especially in Indological studies.
Okay.
So there is a YouTube video by Dr. Wendy Doniger where she
Okay.
mentioned about what how Rajiv really played his tried to influence to ban her book The Hindus in India. How he
Mm,
influenced the
mm,
Penguin publishers,
mm.
and also it's a common knowledge, it's a public knowledge how he tried to shoot down Richard Fox Young. Richard Fox Young is an Indologist from Princeton,
Mm.
and Sheldon Pollock is another one actually where Ambedkar did his PhD, Columbia University. Sheldon Pollock is a great Sanskritologist in Columbia University.
Mm.
So Rajiv Malhotra and his group, they try to um, censor their scholarship
Mm.
because their scholarship does not talk what he believes to be true.
Right. Right.
So that's how, like, he thinks they are faithful only when they talk, when they parrot what he wants them to say. And these
Mm.
scholars, they don't say like that. They don't conduct scholarship like that.
Mm.
And he was he really bullied them in public.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
um, this is not a good precedent that we are seeing here, especially in Indological studies. Yeah,
Yeah. So just the way the BJP and RSS ideology works in India, they're
yeah,
taking the same thing, including the caste system, and influencing the education, influencing the universities, and bringing their agenda on universities forcefully, cutting down on funds, begging on roads for funds to convert people into Hinduism and stuff like that. He does it to
yeah.
break India, and he accuses the Christians doing it. Anyways, we will be taking on it much further. However,
See,
let me ask you one final question.
brother,
And you feel
before you ask it, can I also
yeah, yeah,
share? See,
yeah.
I shared growing up. I shared Hindutva ideology.
Okay.
In the temples, we, Brahmin kids, we gather around and then we think about Christianity as a political religion. It's a political conspiracy.
Mm, mm,
That's how I viewed it. And I
mm,
thought Christians they're doing conversions only to take over India.
mm,
That's that's how I had an opinion on Christianity growing up. But the encounter with Christ, I saw something beyond that, something
right,
even against it, not even
right,
beyond, actually, something
right.
against it.
Mm.
So Christ encounter with him, it's a real encounter, and then I could not deny myself if I'm in all honesty.
Mm.
And the evidence actually is overwhelming also, archaeologically speaking. The more I'm into research, the more it is really reinforcing my faith in Christ.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but here is the thing that I want to say about Hindutva ideology here.
Mm.
Um, Most of them, they stand outside Christianity, and then all these are assumptions that they bring to the table.
Right. Right.
They don't even question their assumptions.
Mm.
Uh, so, for example, only after a person who shared Hindutva ideology, once I became a Christian, once I started actually following Jesus Christ, I became a disciple of Christ. That's when it prompted my interest to join Indian Army.
Mm. Mm.
Because as a Christian, I wanted to serve my country.
Mm.
Because my father-in-law, not my father, my father-in-law, um, he served in the Indian Army for more than 30 years
Mm.
as a faithful Christian.
Mm.
And when I looked at his lifestyle, I was very encouraged and I was prompted, and I really wanted to serve like him in the Indian Army, because I want to show Christianity really prompted me to love my country, not break my country.
Right. Yeah.
So, never really, as a Hindutva person, never really it occurred to me to join the Indian Army. I'm not
Mm.
saying actually Hindutva people won't join Indian Army. That's not. I was trying to get it.
Correct. Yeah. 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 But that ideology didn't inspire you probably to get into Indian
It did not.
Army, but when you became a Christian, it did.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So I really wanted to. I was almost there. I got selected in the Indian Military Academy.
Mm.
So at the very last minute, actually, due to a small mistake, that I could not go in. So, but what a privilege, really! I thought that it would be to join the army and serve the nation as a Christian, as a
Mm.
follower of Christ. Yeah,
Yeah. Amen.
yeah,
Amen. Yeah. And I know hundreds of Christian families that are serving the nation, and hundreds of Christian
yeah,
young people serving the nation, and protecting the nation from goons like these guys from
yeah,
outside trying to break India.
yeah.
And the Lord will always be with our nation, and He will protect our nation from from goons like this. Anyways, one last question to you, Brother Sai. What message do you have for our viewers, especially about the research, about the videos such as what Miss Kamakshi did? What message do you give to our viewers? How do you look at the education of Christian faith? How do you look at the research, and when people see such videos, how should they respond to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. See, no matter how much she portrayed herself as a true scholar, um, I can't really fail but notice. Um, I didn't fail to notice her naivete in that video.
Hmm.
Um, See, she attacked Christianity by distorting it.
Right.
That's not bravery.
Mm.
You quote Christianity based on what it is, and then you attack it.
Right.
So, as Christians, we are not afraid. Indian Christians, I'm talking about. As
Mm.
Indian
But
Christians, we are not afraid of critique on Christianity.
absolutely. But I heard Indian Christians don't read and don't research.
I think that is another naivete, because I think they both need to understand that German scholarship, these Germans I spoke about, who are the ones who raised these questions in the beginning in 18th and
Uh-huh.
19th century.
Uh-huh.
This scholarship, Serampore University has been reading for a while.
Right.
So Serampore University deals with Von Rad. Actually, in fact, one of the textbooks when I went to UTC, one of the prescribed textbooks was by Von Rad.
Mm-hmm.
And Hermann Gunkel, they read, who raised questions against the Old Testament.
Mm.
And they read them. So please don't say that Indian Christians are unsophisticated. No, that's not true. You see in Sakshi Apologetics Network itself, like you see how well aware of you are of the scholarship right now, the cutting edge scholarship on the field, right? So if
Right.
you are really saying that Indian Christians are not sophisticated, then you are actually a frog in the well. You don't know. You didn't interact with
Mm.
much of Indian Christians really.
Right.
Maybe actually you might have interacted only with these people who. Without knowledge, actually, there are some section of Christians who would say that knowledge is not needed and all these things. Maybe she interacted with them, but that should not really be used to paint the whole of Indian Christianity.
Mm.
Read our literature. Read
Right.
Purushottam Chaudhary's the poems, the poetry that he wrote, how
Right.
sophisticated that was.
Right.
And
Yeah.
read William Carey
Mm.
and watch some videos by Sakshi Apologetics Network. Go to Serampur University and then try to figure out actually what sort of recommended books that they're using. You will be blown away, Miss Esther, and
Mm.
also Mr. Rajiv Malhotra. You will be blown away that you probably did not read all these books that those people actually have been reading all through. But one thing that I really want to say, Indian Christians are not really afraid of critique on Christianity. So a level of especially in the second video when you see that Billy Graham converted 80% of Africa and 50% of
That's a
India.
joke.
So this shows actually the level of scholarship, level
Yeah.
of knowledge of Indian Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did Billy Graham come, and then when did Christianity exist in India? So
Right.
50% of Indians are converted, 80% of Africa was converted by Billy Graham. So that's I think it shows the level of
Yeah.
depth that he has about Indian Christianity. And second point I really want to mention is, looks like actually her modus operandi, like mode of operation, is find out some critiques of Christianity and then just quote them.
Right.
Like, for example, those who left Christianity, like Michael Shermer or somebody, she quoted that he's a songwriter and all these things. But I also want to say, how about actually thousands of scholars who are um, who remain Christians because of
Mm.
their scholarship?
Yeah.
So Miss Esther's and Mr. Rajiv Malhotra's approach is very flawed, because if you are showing that if you are attacking Christianity based on few people who apostatized or who left Christianity, then how do you account for thousands and thousands of people who are wonderful scholars in the field and who, because of their scholarship,
Yeah.
staying in Christianity? So why would you ignore that? Because it is
Mm.
not convenient to you, and that's why you are ignoring it. That's not
Mm.
how we should really interact. Because when we assess Hinduism, we should not assess Hinduism based on who left Hinduism.
Right. Yeah.
We should assess Hinduism based on what it is.
Right.
So, and this is another flaw
Mm.
that I found in that. If I can make a quick point again, that Rajiv, this is again and again and again, it is coming actually in his videos, that as if Indian Christians are Christian pastors actually are telling that, okay, you can't change the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you speak, and all these things. So that's why, okay, you can keep all these things and then you can have this new faith. As you see the kind of spin
Yeah.
that he puts on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask the same question. Let's say, you did this interview in English.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do it? I mean, Rajiv and Esther did that interview in English.
Right.
And I saw him many times. Actually, he wore Western sort of dresses and all these things, like Western, like shirt. Uh,
Right.
he doesn't wear that Indian priests would wear all the time, right? So he wore Western clothing. So I would ask again the same question: how come actually you are speaking in English? How come you are wearing the Western clothing and all these things? the Christian clothing. Let me say this way. How come you are wearing Christian clothing and Christian language and all these things? Rajiv would immediately retort and he would say that, well, who gave you patent rights? Who gave patent rights over English and also over dresses to Christians? These are Western. In the same way, I am also saying that the way I eat, the way I dress, the language I speak, the kind of music that I use, Hindus don't have patent right on that.
Right.
These are Indian.
Right.
So don't claim only Hindutva folks would attach these things to Hinduism.
Right.
But I'm saying this is a fallacy. This is wrong in doing it because these are Indians, and that's why, as a Christian, I can speak my language, Telugu, and I can speak Hindi, another Indian language. I can speak Tamil and all these things because these are Indian. These are markers
Right.
of Indianness.
Right.
These are not markers of Hinduness.
Mm.
This is a key point that Rajiv and others need to really highlight because you can confuse these two things. If you're conflating and confusing, then you also have to conflate and confuse English with Christianity.
Right. Right. Yeah.
If you're not willing to do that, then you also should be willing actually not to do that in India. Don't apply different standards here and there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mm.
Indian Christians are honest about the questions raised against Christianity. Look at me as an
Absolutely.
Indian Christian. So I am going actually where the evidence takes me. I am tracking for the answers. I'm not really Googling for
Mm.
seeing questions and then Googling and then settle down as Christianity is all wrong. I'm
Yeah.
equipping myself each day. I'm involved in serious scholarship.
Mm.
So please don't paint. If you are painting Indian Christianity with a broad brush like this, it shows your naivety, and people one day or the other day they will recognize. And a message to Indian
Yeah.
Christians now: don't be afraid. Don't be
Mm-hmm.
afraid. These questions actually have been raised against Christianity for 2,000 years.
Right.
So by Islamic forces, they have been raising questions against Christianity, and you see a lot of people from German scholarship they have been raising, and then from French scholarship, people like Voltaire, they have raised
Mm-hmm.
questions against Christianity. Don't be afraid, and these questions are met at the same intellectual level already.
Right.
And
Right.
now we are sitting in the 21st century. We building on their work. We have more sophistication now because the archaeological advancements are mind blowing, in fact. And
Right.
brother, can I recommend actually one book to all our viewers?
Uh-huh. Sure. Go ahead.
So this book, it's called "Do Historical Matters Matter to Faith?"
Mm.
Do historical matters matter to faith? That's the book I think we all should have. Um,
Okay.
lot of linguists, lot of Old Testament professors, New Testament professors, archaeologists like John Monson, who lived in Israel and who conducted archaeology for so many years in Israel, and James K. Hoffmeyer, I spoke about earlier, who is a
Right.
world-famous Egyptologist, still involved in archaeology in Egypt.
Mm.
So all these people, they wrote this volume called "Do Historical Matters Matter to Faith?"
Mm.
It's a sophisticated volume. I think we should read, and saying that archaeology has already disproved Christianity, or like sociology or anthropology has already disproved Christianity. History has already disproved Christianity. These are broad brushes. They're unfounded. I think scholars won't make statements like this. A scholar should speak like a scholar in a
Mm.
balanced way, not in terms of broad brushes. So Indian
Mm.
Christians, I think gear up, and you have been doing actually fantastic job. Indian Christians, I know many Indian Christians actually, um, they are not living on Western money.
Mm.
Look at you. Do you have Western money, brother? You
Well,
are working, you are eating, actually, you are doing all these things based on your
yeah.
handiwork, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're working, and then, so I think Miss Esther's
Well,
and
they,
Mr. Rajiv Malhotra's view of Indian Christianity is very naive, and they haven't interacted with true Indian Christians so far. Yeah.
mm. Well, thank you very much, brother. As you rightly said, there are hundreds and thousands of Christian young men, young women who work hard, who eat their own, hard-earned work and hard-earned money. and we don't need any Infinity Foundation or any Tom, Dick, and Harry's contribution to be a Christian in India.
Yeah.
And we will continue to proclaim the Lordship of our Lord in India and across the world. And we don't need any white man's money for that.
Yeah.
But persons or people like Rajiv Malhotra, who like to buy people with Infinity Foundation and who like to bully real research and real scholarship and try to buy people like the fake scholars and bring them onto the platform and try to put down the Christian faith in India. By God's grace, we are willing to take this war. We are willing to take this take this challenge,
Head
and we
on.
will see through. Yeah,
Yeah.
head on. We will see through. Maybe if they are willing, we can come down to America and have a meaningful interaction with them,
Yeah.
even in America, and they don't have to pay anything to us. And we will be there, and we will try and address all their concerns if they want. We have been
Yeah.
waiting for material that Miss Kamakshi will bring out for 1.5 years, and she didn't do it. She went to America, and she will not do it even from there. I know. If she does, we are waiting for that. There are hundreds of people waiting to refute those claims, and we will continue to do that. Thank you so much, Brother Sai, for being on this show for tonight. I'll let you go for now, and we'll
Thank
meet you
you.
another time with another
Sure.
topic in hand. Well, yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching the show, and subscribe our video, and also hit the bell icon. You'll get more updates from us. Thank you so much, and we'll meet you with another topic, with another person, and also sometimes we'll be bringing on more ex-Hindus, and also Brother Sai will also be addressing some of the concerns from the video. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.